Hey Andre, sorry this is kind of late. I didn't realize what time it was. I got caught up working on my terminate object and my scene changes. Thought I had it working earlier, but apparently making this a larger demo showed me a lot of errors. So I haven't been able to figure out what's going on with my dumpster. So well, I'll get to the code portion of it later. I'll just show you what is working right now for the full demo. So nothing's really changed in my asset management system since we started everything. So that hasn't really changed since the beginning of the sprint. Neither has my update or my input. Well, I'll show you the input system. The only difference I really made. So I do have the input system working where I have a key events that choose what you want to do. So for key press events, I have just right now for the spacebar key press events. It as long as you're pressing, it'll always cycle through and do what you want it to do. Uh, I have it coded so that on the first release, it'll just do what you want it to do, but it won't continuously read a key released state. So there's a Boolean value to prevent you from having just infinite amount of key release states occurring at the same time. Excuse me. For collisions, I don't think I showed you my sphere collisions last time, so I do have sphere collision now, which is as you can see, the frigate to cottage here, and then also the self frigate with frigate. Sorry, I didn't update my camera. I guess I probably should have done that. But if you get close, it's just frigate to frigate, and the same thing with the frigate to cottage. So I get the bounding sphere collisions. One thing I didn't have last time, Andre, I guess from way before, was multiple alarms on the same object. So right now I just have two alarms on the cottage cycling through and resetting themselves on the alarm to just change the position of the cottage, just to show that I have multiple alarms working for a single object. Uh, yeah, that part stuff. All right, Anjay, for the actual code portion, I'm going to show you what I have wrong, well, what I have not working correctly first. The main thing right now being the terminable object, and which is causing my scene switchover problems. I will show you, I guess, real quick that my scene does call its destructors, which I just removed my bullet point, or excuse me, my breakpoint, so that's not coming up anymore. Hold on one second, let me just so when I close out the game, the time manager, well, it's not really anything big, right? But the level manager goes in to delete, which will remove the current scenes, the pointers for the current scene, and I have my breakpoint in the wrong spot. So give me one. Alright, so with a breakpoint in the correct spot, when my level destructor is called, right now I have my the terminate object dumpster. My pointer to that is commented out right now because I'm having problems with that, and I'll talk to you about later. But I go through and I delete all of the managers that I created in the scene, right, which cleans up everything with the exception of my game objects. And again, that'll be something I show you with the terminal with my terminal objects, because well, looking at all the code that we have in the common with everybody's completed projects, talking to people on Piazza and talking to people offline, I haven't been able to figure out what's going on with my stuff. So it's probably something I just need to look at a little bit more in depth and figure out why the scene change has caused these problems. But as you can see, I do have my destructors being called when I exit out of the game. Just that was one of the things you told us to do. The reason why the dumpster part isn't working, I'm not sure, but that's what I will be talking to you about now with my code. So from your lectures and from what I've seen and talked to with other students, my I haven't really seen any real difference in my code. One thing I have that a couple of us, well, a few people that I've seen have had, maybe it was only just like one other person, but it was I had this created this instance. Um, it was almost treating it like a static object, or excuse me, as a singleton, which is what essentially our true singleton, which is essentially what our dumpster should be, because we wanted to catch everything on creation, regardless of what actual level we're in. So the entire time the game is operating, we want our dumpster to be working. So that's why I had it initially set up as a singleton. I was running into issues with part of the the way the singleton was being created, and so I removed some of that code, which I can't. I must have deleted it from this. So anyways. So when I create the an, any object, it, calls the normal constructor, and so I set a boolean value to false for excuse me, for its marked for termination value, and then I set the default manager of the dumpster to the dumpster, and that seems to work. But when I actually try to register it to the dumpster, to put it in the dumpster's list, that's where I'm running into problems now. Um, I'm not sure why it's running into problems, but it's basically trying to assign a null pointer, and I haven't been able to debug and figure out why exactly I'm getting a null pointer here. And people I've talked to, they weren't able to help me, so I kind of commented it out to see if I could get it to work, and everything else worked with the exception of being able to register here. That's something I got to look at. The dumpster itself, it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, it's essentially the same code that you gave us, and so there's not really any differences. Same thing with the manager. I don't know exactly what's wrong with my terminal object code, but that is something I need to go through and figure out in detail why that's going on. All right, let me move on to the scene system real quick for you. All right, so my scene system uh, has the managers in the actual level itself to like all the rest of the managers for the scene, right? So the terminal object manager and the dumpster manager is part of the level, so that's not the issue there. So I have pointers going out to both from that perspective. Um, with the actual scene change, when my next scene is called, um, it goes through all the correct motions until I get to the termination phase, and then because of the dumpster system, when with the dumpster system there, it's not working. Without it, obviously, I'm having like a massive amount of memory leak. So if I continuously change scenes like over and over, I would just eventually end up leaking memory. Again, like this all falls down into my well, at least I think it's something to do with my terminal object manager that I got to go through and dig a little bit deeper into figuring out why my garbage collection is not working. And then, which I didn't tackle on that note. I didn't show the factories. I think I have it set up to do the factories, but I didn't test it because the other part of the system's not working, so it's kind of pointless for me to test other things when the basic is not working. Uh, right, so that's pretty much my code review. I mean, I collision system, it's essentially the same collision system that you gave us. So what I didn't show you, but I did show you in practice, but not my code, is the how I'm getting the sphere test. So basically, I'm getting a transform for each of the collision objects. their world transforms. Um, well, their model transforms, and then multiplying it by the world transform for the object to find the centers, and multiplying that by that one unit vector to get the radius, and I'm doing that once for each object, and then from there I can test between the distance between the two centers, and compare that to the distance between the radii. And as long as the distance between the centers is less than the sum of the two of the radii, then I get the true, which I showed you earlier. Other than that, except I didn't change the remove the template functions like you wanted us to do later. I wanted to tackle that when I have everything else working. So that and the function pointers for the terminal object, I will also probably try to implement that now, well, after this, before next quarter starts, to make sure that my engine's actually working with the new way instead of the having the template functions. Maybe I'll figure out whatever's wrong while I'm changing my code to do that. Yeah, so that's my code. For Doxygen documentation, uh, I don't really know what you want to see for the documentation. Well, so I'm going to show you the UML diagrams that you showed us in class, and then I also have. I know that you talk about clarity of documentation. I'm pretty sure that, well, at least I think I'm pretty clear as to essentially all of the major functions for each of the base classes, as well as the resource manager. So right here, this is the resource manager, showing exactly what was required of adding a model or a texture, parameters, and then special notes like the notes for this. You can read all this stuff. And again, so the excuse me, the majority of the major functions have the briefs per the Doxygen guidelines. Let me get to. Oh, sorry. So functions for the game object. I mean, I think this is pretty clear. Everything essentially is contained where it's supposed to be for each group of objects. So for like an in group for excuse me, sorry. I guess I can bring up my code while I close my code. But I have in groups for the game object, so everything that has to do with the game object is here, which is why I have the draw and the key press, key release, terminate. These sorry, I don't know what I clicked on. But yeah, so sorry, yeah. So the in group for the different objects, or for the game objects really, and the assets they're all grouped where they need to be through the Doxygen. So I think it's pretty readable when I was going through it earlier. Yeah. So I think my code's pretty clean comparatively from like 372, 374. There's definitely still a lot that I need to learn, and getting tied up like on little things at the last minute, which I always, well, at least I thought it was fine, and I think my testing, the way I test things, has been a little more lax than it needs to be, which is why I'm running into these issues when I actually go more in detail testing, like for this and for some of my sprints. So I think I had to figure out a better way to test the code that I'm implementing to make sure that I don't run into these issues in the future. But I do appreciate everything you did for us in class. Sorry, like the last couple of weeks, I've kind of been away, AWOL, if you will, for personal reasons. But yeah, I look forward to finishing up the rest of the quarter with you next quarter, and knocking out that questionnaire you have for us so we can have a good postmortem on Tuesday. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.